Today we will be meeting beyond thoughts, beyond emotions, and even beyond energies. Meeting beyond everything that makes this experience, meeting deeper than creation, deeper than manifestation. You can notice that the thoughts appear in the space in your head, that emotions and feelings appear in your body, in different parts of the body, or we can say the space of the body. And energies are experienced also in the space of the body. It is very common to follow one's thoughts, to engage with your emotions and feelings. It is very common to engage with energies inside you and passing through your chakras, your system. And it's important to remember where these thoughts, emotions, feelings, and energies appear. So they are in the space of your being. So we can call it the context, the space of your being, and thoughts, emotions, and feelings are the content, filling up the space of your being. The content can be positive, can be nice feelings, it can be negative, can be disturbing thoughts, negative energies. So good things and bad things are the content in the same space of your being. So the wisest step is not to fix up all the content, because there's always something new coming up every day. So the wisest step is to recognize that it is within the context of your being that the positive and negative content appears. And thus, that is an important step towards your liberation. To recognize the good, that also the bad is the content. Certain thoughts, certain emotions, certain feelings, certain energies. People at higher levels of consciousness forget that energies are also content, that visions are also content in the same space of the being. So energy is simply more refined, a subtler dimension of the same thoughts and emotions. Because at the very surface of the ocean, there are the bubbles of the water. We may say when the wave rises, it produces a certain amount of bubbles at the top. So if the wave itself is emotion, then all the bubbles that it produces are all the thoughts in the mind. And the wave itself is emotion. Emotion, energy in motion. So energy is a deeper level of the same thoughts, of the same feelings, of the same emotions. And for people in 400s and 500s, even above, doesn't matter what level of consciousness it is, energies are still energies. Visions are still energy manifestations, just on a deeper level. And there's still content appearing in the space of the being. So thus, Buddha described that space of the being as emptiness, but that emptiness is fully aware of the content that arises within it. So the emptiness is aware of what appears in the emptiness, of the waves moving in the emptiness, of the energy rising in the emptiness, producing a wave, producing many thoughts. And it is that emptiness, according to Buddha, which is neutral in itself. It is never really opposing what appears. It doesn't really do anything with what appears, apart from being fully aware that within emptiness, something is appearing, something is happening. Certain energies are being experienced, are present. Certain emotions are present. So thus, consciousness or emptiness, as Buddha said, it is the same unconditional space, we may say, of your being, in which not only the content appears, which is a personal content, but this consciousness is much larger than your individual space. Individual space is more like 600s in the levels of consciousness. You learn to become present with what is flowing through you. So you stabilize in your personal space, which then grows into a cosmic space. And thus you can be present with larger energies flowing through the space. However, whether personal or cosmic, in the full consciousness, anything that is presently here, including all of you and all of your environments, is part of the big now. In the big now, it is all these houses and billions of people, the earth, many other planets, the whole galaxy, the whole universe is in the big now. And you may say it is not personal to you, what is happening in Japan, what is happening in Australia or United States or Europe, but it is within the big now. within the consciousness itself. So thus, from the personal space, you go deeper and deeper to recognize that this space is actually not even personal. It is just the unconditional space, you may say, or unconditional emptiness. And within this unconditional emptiness, unconditional consciousness, everything is happening exactly like this in every part of the world, including people being happy, including people having difficulties. It is all happening in this great emptiness. Of course, we do want everyone to be happier. We do want this whole earth to live in light and love. And that means to be more aligned with the way of the energy of the universe, to be less distorted energies. Because difficulties and suffering is created by distortions. Even the word sin means error. It means error, simply making mistakes, making errors. And thus, even logically, it means that there is a certain way that the universe is designed. And if one follows the design of the universe, one will not experience hardship and suffering if one is aligned with the way of the universe. So thus, the first step is to soften your attention and focus from being engaged with the thoughts, emotions, feelings, appearances. We may say to disengage. To disengage, first of all, from the personal experience. And the easiest way to disengage is to slow down, to soften, and to withdraw. To notice the engagement, how you habitually follow your thoughts, how you habitually engage with emotions, how you habitually engage with passing deeper energies. In Buddhism, it's called attachment. We can also call it engagement. Because engagement is conditional, or we may also call it entanglement. The conditional engagement or attachment is the entanglement with your thoughts, emotions, or feelings, and thus there is a certain confusion, a certain unclarity, because there is entanglement with that which is being experienced or observed within your personal space, or even within the cosmic space. Doesn't matter how big it is. If you're attached, you're attached. If you're entangled, you're entangled. You can be entangled with a silly thought. You can be entangled with a cosmic vision. Still the same thing, entanglement. Disentanglement, disengagement, detachment creates, first of all, a space of neutrality. Then you can observe that there's a space of neutrality. And in that space of neutrality, more clarity arises. Then you can observe from a little bit more neutral position and say, oh, I see where this river is going. I see where this pattern of thought is going. I see what these energies are doing to me. And as you learn to stay a bit more neutral in the space of the being, then as the space of the being strengthens, some deeper energies arise. Then subconscious patterns arise, subconscious thoughts. You see, in your conscious mind, you can say, I'm a very positive person. I always want things to be good. I always try to do good things. But then in your subconsciousness, there can be a whole mess. And then you will say, well, somebody told me something, I became very angry, and I said something that I didn't want to say. Yes, so there's a conscious mind and there's a subconscious mind, which can be very different. In the conscious mind, you can be angel. In the subconscious mind, it can be quite a chaos. So the conscious mind has a certain control of the subconscious mind. And that proportion changes as the level of consciousness rises. It still depends on traumas, on nervous system damage, and other factors. But speaking generally, the proportion of conscious, subconscious, and versus the clarity of consciousness changes according to the levels of consciousness, generally speaking. So as you stay in the space of the being, then deeper energies arise, subconsciousness arises, and even unconsciousness arises. You see, in the conscious mind, you're trying to deal with the thoughts, what's going on. With the subconscious mind, you can still be aware that there is a certain negative nagging or certain bad feeling in the subconscious mind. But in the unconsciousness, you have no clue what's there because it's totally blanked out of your conscious and subconscious. And from the unconsciousness, only in deep meditation, things can be brought into the surface. Only when a person reaches a certain level of consciousness, then he or she has access to the unconsciousness. And usually people say, oh my God, I did not realize that in my childhood somebody told me something and this affected my whole lifetime. And I had no clue about that. It was so automated. Or maybe as a child you didn't know how to deal with the situation. So thus you blocked yourself and checked it out into the unconsciousness. And subconsciousness got a bit messy, and then you do meditation, and then you start to realize that there are deeper things that causing trouble. So that is the unconsciousness, which is the, we may say, deepest level of trouble. Fortunately, behind the deepest troubles in the unconsciousness, right behind that void of unconsciousness, there is love. And that's how universe has intelligently created everything. That no matter how deep the rabbit hole goes, no matter how deeply rooted issues are, there's love behind it. So therefore, you need to know that there is always love and more love behind any biggest challenge, any biggest trouble. And even behind love, there is the consciousness itself. Because love is a certain fragrance. It is a certain nurturing radiance, a certain creative force. So love is a certain energy, a creative energy, creative force. You know, all the human beings are made of love. So love is a creative force and sustaining force. And the source itself, that emptiness or consciousness, it includes everything, all kinds of qualities are springing out into the creation of different forms and energies and objects. So from the personal space, deeper things arise, and then there again you need more neutrality and more observation and more disentanglement, detachment, so that you can witness these deeper places, subconscious patterns, and even unconscious things. And this is how you open more and more into the neutral, untouched emptiness, not entangled consciousness, unconditioned consciousness. And as you stay in that great emptiness consciousness, as you stay there, deeper things come, deeper things go. And as you stay there longer, you stabilize more and more. And then there is a certain knowing that everything that appears is appearance, is a certain energy. And that space is untouchable. That emptiness is untouchable. It's like a movie screen that is not affected by any movie played on it, whether there was ocean, the screen is not wet, whether there was a explosion, the screen has not exploded, whether there was a beautiful love story, the screen is still fine, whether there was a big drama, the screen is still fine when the movie is over. So that is the nature of consciousness. It's not affected by what happens. in the whole universe, good and bad. It's not affected by that. So therefore, that is called liberation from the bad and from the good. Liberation from any attachment, liberation from any desire, liberation from any experience on any dimension, no matter how deep it is. Consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, doesn't matter, it's not affected. So now let's do a practice of stepping into that deeper space and slowly disentangling from thoughts, emotions, appearances, ideas, energies. So when you're ready, you can sit down and take a few moments to slow down into this present moment. Feeling your breath, feeling the space in which your breath is happening. Noticing that there's a certain space in which the thoughts can come, emotions be felt, energies being experienced. And try to soften your focus, to soften your attention, to soften your engagement. To become more neutral, by softening, you open more into the neutral observation, into a neutral space. And give some time for this deepening, for neutrality, softening your focus, disengagement, no more engagement, just pausing for a while. When you're ready, you can slowly start coming back, noticing your engagement with what is here. So you can remember that at any point you can slow down, you can observe your engagement, and you can soften your focus and attention, thus coming back to more neutrality and to a deeper and deeper, bigger space, where everything can be observed as it is happening, and be seen what is here, what is happening. Sometimes it can be called unlearning, deprogramming, releasing the habits, detachment, healing, letting go, disengagement, disentanglement, deconditioning, all the various ways of ungripping from the experience back into the neutral being. And this neutral being is not someone observing, the I observing, the feeling of I or myself observing. That would be a subject. That could be a subject which is neutral with experience. even that subject, the I, the observer, needs to also be softened and released. And that is a final release where any boundary between the I with a certain perimeter of observation. So this I dissolves to become boundless. And that is the final separation. When the subject of I with the perimeter is relaxed and released into boundlessness. So we can say that you are learning multiple ways of how to detach from what is being experienced. There are so many practices, or we can call it a toolbox of deconditioning back into the boundlessness, into the full consciousness. And there is no fear of deconditioning, because a fear keeps one in limitation, in a closed state. A fear keeps one in a closed state, in a limited state, in a protective state, in a defensive state. So fear is kind of retreating into a dark corner, which is limiting, which is defensive, protective. I sometimes call it the fear. It's like a cat cornered in a corner. But when you catch the cat in a corner, then it shows its nails. It's gonna scratch you. So the fear only plays protective and safe, but then it's gonna bite you. It's gonna scratch you and bite you. So there's no need for fear, because that is closing yourself. And the light is opening yourself. This space or light of consciousness is opening yourself. And opening is releasing limitations. And as you go through that release of limitations, later on you see that, wow, this was so limiting. I would never want to go back into that limited state, into that fearful state, into that contracted state. Maybe the process of releasing or healing is difficult, but once you are done with that, you will not want to go back into the fear, into the limitation. So this is how you gain courage, you gain trust of the process, you gain wisdom by experience, and therefore at some point you can handle anything. Then you can handle anything that comes your way. It's just another form of limitation. Oh, and this is just another form of limitation. Oh, that's another challenge. We can handle it all. So that comes with a certain training, with a certain experience of practice. And there is a saying that if you want to become good at something, you should train for 10,000 hours to become a professional at something. So some people spend it on sports, on arts, and so forth. But if you spend 10,000 hours on releasing, you must be quite free already. Yes, professional disentangler. Yes, that's a good one. So you become professional at being free. And you know, after 10,000 hours, it's all automated. You don't even blink that you already can function naturally as such. Just like your body, you know, learning to swim, learning to ride a bicycle, first is difficult, but then you just do it. So we can say it's in a similar way, learning all the toolbox of disentanglement.
It was a really nice practice. I felt it's kind of interesting just to watch what kind of pops up, what wants to float by, you know, what thoughts want to just come up, and it's nice just to have a feeling of watching them, and sometimes being able, you know, when I have my eyes closed, it's easier to just sort of let them, you know, fall away. But then out, you know, engaged in the world, that's a little bit harder. It's like I feel like I can way more get stuck into it. Um, but I wanted to ask about the disentangling. If you're allowing a particular energy just to come up, um, am I frozen? Can you hear
No,
me?
no, that's
Okay.
fine. That's fine.
When energy comes up and you're sort of just letting it rise up and feel it, is that a would you say, is that like a removal of the energy, so to speak? Like you feel like you've sort of worked through a certain thing? Sometimes I wonder, because certain energies do just kind of come up again, you know.
Yes,
um,
yes. Well, there is a certain, we may say, familiarity with a certain set of emotions and energies,
mhm,
and a certain resonance. And as you work through a certain set of emotions and energies, as you continue working through, you're deconditioning. And then there's a certain transcendence.
mhm,
The energy is never really removed as such. We don't have such a word, removal. Where can you remove it? I mean, you can just put it somewhere else, because energy is just transformed or transcended. So essentially, it is a transcendence process. And then you resonate less and less and less with the
mhm.
lower vibrational energies. And then there's a certain transcendence that you're no longer resonating with certain energies. So, in a general, we may say, spirituality, it is known as non-dual transcendence, transcending beyond conditions. Yeah, so then when there's that transcendence, even if the same energy comes back again, it's just like a breeze of wind that doesn't touch you. It just
So,
breezes through you.
instead of removal, transcendence, but does that more mean that as that energy is transcended, it's not necessarily automatically, um, you know, an automatic trigger that triggers some of the deeper things that tend to come up?
Yes.
Sort
Yeah,
of take out of the equation of what's a normal
yeah,
trigger.
yeah. A
Or
triggering effect is in a way um, in a way, it's inability. The trigger creates a certain conditioned response.
Mhm.
And therefore, it is, yes, transcending those triggers through healing, through polishing.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you look back, let's say 2 years ago, there are many emotions that you have transcended already.
Mhm.
So it's exactly the same. So the challenges of today will be transcended like the challenges 2 years ago. And as as time goes by, I call it polishment, energetic polishment, or we may say integration, that as time goes by, it doesn't matter what life throws at you. You can let it flow. You can go through it. So that happens on energetic level, and the Amrita Nadi, the focus and attention, is released from energetic triggers, attachments, entanglements, until you realize that you are that unconditioned space itself, unconditioned openness itself. So when you realize that, that is called self-realization. And from that point onwards, it doesn't matter what comes up. It becomes unconditioned. However, energetically speaking, since consciousness is shining through this form has certain limitations as a form, because of course, you know, this form, for example, can't keep the hand in the fire, and it needs a certain food for sustenance, and it's subject, of course, to energy. Of course, it is subject to energy. You know, if you go out in the sunlight, if you stay for 8 hours, you're gonna get sunburned. You know, it's a form, it's a body, it's subject to certain, it's subject to energies. So thus the form itself can still take time to process the energies. But however, what is called me is no longer the form, and it's no longer the attention or focus or subject. So that becomes released, and thus in the self-realized state, there is simply consciousness seeing the now. And this form itself is being seen as it is, even if it has any physical or energetic limitations. But that is no longer a problem. So there's no more entanglement as such, and no more confusion. Yes. Okay, very well. Yeah, so I do want to emphasize, just a moment to emphasize that as the consciousness itself is untouchable, however, the form, which is the body, of course it is touchable. You know, it is touchable. Yes, it is a form. It is subject to all the limitations of the 3D and 4D and 5D and 9D, and the energies also impact the body because this is composed of energy as well. But there's no more confusion who is the self. So therefore, that is called liberation. And the form continues living and doing what it is subject to. So one day this body will also pass away, but there's no drama about it. And that's fine. And it's gonna happen one day. But there's no more confusion that I'm this body only. And there's no denial as well for those who think, okay, so this guy, doesn't care about anything. No, there's no denial as such. I'm not denying that there is no body. It is here. It's right here. And I'm telling you, it's touchable. And this body needs to eat and sleep and do whatever it does. It has its likes and preferences and dislikes. It's all fine. I love this body. This body is right here. I love everybody. All the forms, all the shapes. So this is how consciousness embodies. The consciousness embodies. It means it shines through the body. It shines through the physicality. So there's no denial as such. So therefore I don't use the non-dual language. Some people may start liking this non-dual language. Yes, but don't get confused. The body is still here. Yeah, it's everything is still here exactly as it is right now.
I would like to share my experience of yes, it was very beautiful, and I found myself like relaxing more and more and more, and at some point this at some point some sort of like intensity of confusion arose that am I observing or some kind of action happening, but I still could like really be untouched and allow that to drop, kind of light of consciousness to drop even deeper. And at some point it was like it just opened, and
it was a release.
yes, it was a beautiful release from unconscious mind that something that I haven't seen until now.
Yes. And confusion is also beautiful.
Yes. Nothing wrong with confusion.
There's nothing wrong with confusion.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful noodle soup. And it's fine. And it's fine. Confusion is fine. When you look at confusion, it's quite beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like a chaotic, chaotic substance.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
as you allow confusion to be here, then clarity arises.
Yeah.
And so confusion is, you can just simply see, it's like a little dense cloud that you can't see through, but as you look at it, it's beautiful.
Yeah. But I only realized, like I only saw that it was confusion after it opened. I was like, that was that was confusion, because before my focus was like disattaching, like releasing.
Yes.
I was not focusing that is confusion. It was falling.
Yes.
And only then, yes.
Yes.
So nice.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Very good, very good. Anything that comes to you, even confusion, even pain, it is a certain energy, a certain feeling, a certain substance. Because even pain is a certain deep pressure into a certain point. And if you observe it, it's actually molecules and atoms buzzing in a very quick way. They're creating this kind of, when you put two stones together, they're grinding, creating that friction. And since it's in the physical body location, that friction becomes a bit uncomfortable, and that's what we call pain. It's a certain condensity of atoms frictioning with each other, creating that uncomfortable biological sensation. Everything is so amazing. When you closely observe the nature of everything that arises, including confusion and pain, it is so beautiful in itself. It is so intelligent. The universe itself created these atoms and molecules to do what they do. And when you look at them, beautiful.
I really can resonate exactly what you're saying, yes.
I'm sure many philosophers were observing closely all the trash and all the poops and seeing it's just beautiful how it is. If you can see the beauty of the universe in a poop, that's a certain level of transcendence. Because even a poop is just organic waste. It's the beautiful food that somebody had before. And it's just being processed, digested, and that's what it is. It's just an organic matter, organic substance. So when you go to the atomic level, everything is atoms and molecules in certain combinations, doing whatever they're programmed to do, whatever they are instructed to do. So in the human realm, we have labeled everything so much that it became a mental labeled realm. There's a very big disconnectedness from the isness of the now. And therefore, even the evil, if it's not defined, you will see that even that has a certain beauty because it's just simply made in such a way to create a mess. And that's what it is. It's just made to destroy, to create a mess, to create some problems, and that's what it's created for. And if you can observe it, that code, that pattern of miscreation, you will see even the beauty over there, that it's miscreated, that something is created with error, like a computer virus. To create a computer virus, you need to be quite a good hacker, isn't it? And the virus has a certain code, a certain instruction to erase the files, to create a mess, to cause some problems. But the universe has a self-balancing mechanism. Just like if you hurt yourself, your body will heal itself. So you call it immune system and self-healing. You cut your finger and next day it's gonna fully heal that you will not even notice that it was cut. Amazing. How does that work? It's a self-healing mechanism. So the same way the whole universe, it's a self-balancing and self-healing mechanism. So evil is seen as a little bug in the system. And the universe, of course, is so much larger than the little bug. So sooner or later, it's going to rebalance all the miscreations. So as you look closely at all creation, whether good or bad, you will see that essentially it is atoms and molecules playing certain structures. And that is part of the whole universe. And essentially, it's energy doing what it's doing, but you are beyond that. You are the consciousness observing, seeing what is happening, how things are going, what is the experience right now. And it's so helpful to lose the labels. If you don't call pain as pain and you observe it closely, you will start to feel a certain sensation. And then as you observe it closer, it will start to release itself. It required your attention, perhaps. Every tension requires your attention. And what is attention? It is shining the light, and that shining of the light itself transforms that on which it is shining onto. So it fixes the error. And it transforms and heals and rebalances. So everywhere that consciousness has intensity, it transforms and heals and rebalances. Okay. These are the universal technicalities. I will tell you something. If you had, let's say, 10,000 years, what would you do? If you know that you would live for 10,000 years, what would you do? You would start learning about life, about creation. You would start learning about DNA, because this is the code of life. And you would start creating environments, life forms. And this is exactly what gods and goddesses do, angels and other beings. They learn the coding of life, which is called DNA, and they create life. People create life out of pleasure. It's called sex. There is a certain reward at the peak time of creation. But more conscious beings can create more consciously life. And that is through knowledge of the structure of life. And life is made out of DNA, out of code, the life code, out of atoms and molecules and how they're combined all together in different dimensions. It's not only physical. So that's why it's a bit complicated. And that's why it's good to follow the guidebook, the rule book of life, which is the laws of the universe, so that you don't create a two-headed cat with 5 legs, of which, by the way, there are many accounts in the mythology, especially in the Greek mythology. You know, half human, half horse, and the walking, cow, and all these kind of mythological creatures. How did they come to be? Who invented them? Who were even thinking about them? Some good questions, isn't it? So if you had 10,000 years, probably you would be upgrading your cats and dogs. And humans already do that already, actually. It's called breeding. You know, every year there's a new kind of puppy invented, which is even cuter. Even smaller, that can fit in your pocket, and even cuter. So that's what people already do. And GMO, genetic modifications, crossbreeding, and there are already some laws and regulations, you know, and so forth. So humanity is now like kind of in a baby creation stage, you know, just playing with some plants and animals. And in the movies, you know, people, they're already portraying upgrading the human DNA to have some superpowers. And that's kind of in the movies right now, but it's already in the collective creative ideology and consciousness that in the future, you know, people will be upgrading themselves through DNA to have new abilities. And why not? If, of course, if it's done right. So that's the future. It's just gonna take some time. So these are simply the laws of creation and creativity and how life is created everywhere on the whole earth.
This is a question about the physical sensation. So during the practice, I felt very distinct sensation in my third eye and below my belly button. So my question is it the right intuition to, well, stay there and somehow focus on it? Because what I did and what was very strong sort of need in me was to just focus on it, and kind of it started dispersing in a way.
Okay, so staying there, yes, staying with that.
Yeah.
So you put your focus on that place of a blockage.
Yes.
Or tension, and then you feel more space around it. Feeling it, not trying to get rid of it, manipulate, just feeling it and feeling more space around it and giving it a bit of time. Because the space with awareness will do the healing automatically.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on it like that, it might not help. So you need to feel the space around it and just give it some time just to observe it, feeling more space around.
My question is, what notices? Whether it's energies or presence or vastness or peace or nothing, what notices?
What notices? Yes, that's a good one. It's the same question of who is aware or what is aware right now. Yeah.
It's this melting of personal and impersonal. Those two categories don't exist so much anymore.
Yes. So
do we call that the self?
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking about subjectivity, also needs to be let go of. So in the pure consciousness of now, there's nobody noticing, right?
Nobody as in contraction of I, self, or someone, as a feeling of I or someone, as a reference of I or someone. So whenever there's no more reference point, whether noticing reference point, awareness reference point, or the subject reference point, then it's open.
There's a lot of bliss that comes along in any given day. And Gregory notices. But Master Mindo has said, even the bliss must be let go of. And I quite am happy to do that. But there's still this noticer, and sometimes there's a aren't I cool ego about it also, which I'm also happy to let go of.
Yes.
I mean, it's all going good. I've probably gone up my 5 points in this lifetime on the LOC scale. But it's just all sweet, Mindo. That's all I can say. Even the struggle is sweet,
Yeah.
like Renata was saying.
Yes, exactly, yes. So if there is that letting go of that reference point, then it's already open. And maybe you can even let go of any concern.
Yeah, that part's true. Okay, I'll shut up. Let somebody else talk.
Yes, okay. Yes. So all of these ways, all of these ways that even concern itself. Is there anybody left here? Even letting go of that too. Good. Yes, wonderful. Okay, so yes, we will be meeting in a week, next Thursday for a satsang, and you can check all upcoming events on the website on thenewhumanityschool.com. So yes, today was a special satsang, yes, with a special meeting of deep relaxation and the professional disentanglement. A few stories of creation, just to gain a bit more deeper insight into the now.